Good morning, Christina.
Good morning. Sorry, back. Good morning. And just in case anyone's watching on YouTube, we're going to give it a couple of minutes for board members to join, as well as other staff. So hang tight.
Christina, I'm gonna turn my video off. I'm not gonna have my video on today. Okay.
I just wanted to say good morning. I was on the phone. Hi, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Deb.
Yeah. Good morning, Christina. Thank you. Actually,
Sure.
was looking at a wrong email location.
During the,
Several emails. I realized, oh, maybe went to the other one.
yeah.
So
I was going to say maybe it's because I actually sent it early enough that I usually send these.
No, I
You put
too
it
was
in?
thinking like I thought I put it somewhere. It's not where I normally put it. Yeah, it was fine. It's fine. Okay.
So what happens when you have multiple email inboxes? You're like, where am I?
Yeah. I've got to work out a slightly better way to get them all rolled up to one spot. It's getting better.
Okay. I'm just texting a few more board members to make sure they are joining, including our chair. So sorry, folks. Just give it another minute or so. Tyrone, maybe you will be the only one.
Yeah, if I have to, sure. Yeah, because there appears to be a fairly packed agenda as I'm looking at all the
Yes.
things to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, the only one I know, Miss Escribano said she could not attend today, but I don't know where our chair is. Give me 1 minute. Okay, Dr. Silver, why don't we get started? We're gonna skip item 1 for now, as we are missing one person, and start with item number 2, which is the second readings. Let me just quickly share the agenda on the screen. We had some follow-up, but we'll wait a second for that and go to the second reading and just a quick review of the policies that we have had as first reading at the last regular board meeting. And then depending on who joins, will either go back to 1 or then go to number 3.
Okay, thank you very much, Christina, and good morning. I apologize. I am a little under the weather today, so I hope you can hear me okay.
Again.
Okay, great. So I'm going to start sharing my screen with our policy committee slide deck. Okay, and so we're starting with the second reading and revisions. We have 4 policies for second reading, and we have not received any additional feedback on these. So I'm going to go to the first policy, the use of physical force, physical restraint, seclusion, and exclusionary time out. And we did get feedback from Ms. Mizrak. There was a question posed by Pastor AJ, our chair of the policy committee, and he asked if there have been any issues with the use of physical force and restraint or seclusion or exclusionary timeout. And Attorney Mizrak was able to research that. And so just want to make sure this is legible to everybody. Excuse me. And I bet you're glad I'm not in the office today. So there were 2 incidents in the last 5 years. And Attorney Mizrak, do you want to share any details, or would you like me to share the details that you provided earlier?
I can do it if you'd
Okay,
like, either
that's
way.
great.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so we were able to take a look and for the past 5 years of cases and claims that were filed. And I found 2 that potentially would have been in the restraint category. And they were actually notices of claims. And so how it works is typically when someone is going to file some sort of litigation against the city or the Board of Ed, they first file a notice of claim with the town clerk's office to put the city and board on notice that, hey, this lawsuit is coming. And there were 2 notices of claims. One went back to 2019 and involved a teacher shutting a classroom door as a student was trying to get into the room. And the allegation in the notice of claim was that the teacher pushed the student. The second one was from 2008, and it was a general allegation in the notice of claim that there was inappropriate force handling a child in a classroom. There were never any lawsuits that came out of those notices of claims. And the only information I could pull was around costs or, if we settled the matter or issued any sort of payment to the claimants. And there were no costs associated with the claims. Nothing was paid out on them in the form of a settlement. So my only guess is that for whatever reason, the parents or guardians in these matters chose not to pursue further legal action. It's possible that they, address the issue internally with the district, but there's certainly no information that we were engaged in any sort of lawsuits or issued any sort of settlement to the families. So that is what I could find for the past 2 years, 5 years rather.
Thank you so much, Attorney Misrak. Are there any questions about this? Okay, hearing no questions, we can review the policy. And we have gone line by line through this policy. And this was a change that we made. We were not going to specify a specific age for carrying students. The policy overviews conditions that relate to the use of physical restraint or seclusion. And I'm very quickly going through this, and I know that we've gone line by line through this policy previously in our last policy committee meeting. And we had the support of Ms. Hoffman in attendance also. So the policy was recodified in October of 2021, but the most recent update revision to the language happened in 2005. So with your permission, we will move forward with bringing this policy for a second reading and a vote for adoption to our board.
Yeah, so Christine, I guess if I'm sitting in that situation, trying to get the procedure here, so should I be the person kind of bring it forward?
You're the only one.
And
So just remember, these policies were already for the full board for the first reading. So I guess if you're okay with moving it, then
I will, but just for the record, right? Is there any kind of quorum requirement?
No,
at a committee level for recommendations. So,
no.
As the representative of the board here present at the meeting, I agree that this policy should be moved to the full board for their review and approval. Now that said, that I don't know if I can ask any questions on that. I did have one general question about that policy.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, Dr. Silver, and don't believe me with detailed conversation, because you do sound a little under the weather. The question is, in the policy, there are these timelines written that speak to the board, i.e. the district, having these plans in place and having these kind of directives put in place starting in 2019 and moving forward, maybe 2018. I'm just wondering, since those dates are put in there in arrears, we have those plans and whatnot already in place. The way it's written, it appears that those plans would already have been put in place by us, or we're already following certain areas of the policy. Am I
Yes.
misinterpreting that?
No, you're not. That's absolutely correct. We have all of the systems in place, the crisis intervention team, and the tools that we need. So we do have everything in place and have been following the law as it has evolved.
Okay, perfect. Then let's move it forward to the board as we talked about. And then I would say, Dr. Silver, it appears to me that potentially moving forward, there's maybe the need for some kind of report out or just some periodic board oversight just to make sure that we can be clear that crisis teams are in place and things are being followed and whatnot, because it seems like it gives a lot of responsibility to the board to make sure these things are happening. So I'm thinking that at some point, some mechanism, some mechanism should be put in place to at least say it's pulled in front of the board and the board has seen, or the board designates someone who will validate that all this is in place, because it seems like there's a lot of compliance as it relates to this type of policy. That's the extent of my comments. Does that seem clear? So I guess, Christine, if I'm shaping it as an action, I would say in the future that these responsibilities that are given to the board to ensure we have plans and directives and teams in place, that somehow we have some mechanism to show that we've at least looked at it and say, yeah, it happens, or some designee is set in place to make sure that this does happen and can report out to the board when it falls out of compliance. Does that make sense? Because right now, I don't know if we have a practice in place where we review to say, do we have crisis teams? Are they trained? Do we have people who've done their annual review? I'm sure somebody in the district makes sure it happens. But right now, it doesn't feel like it floats back up to the board that this is actually happening. So that'd be my only action from that policy.
Okay.
Number two,
Yep.
the second policy is second reading for physical restraint, seclusion, and use of exclusionary timeout, 5.44.11.
Yes, thank you for that. This policy is my screen. So this focuses on use of exclusionary timeout. And as I noted earlier, this is a second reading, and we have line by line read through this policy already. We do have additional definitions that we've integrated. We had some questions. Joanne Trevelyan-Jackson, Ms. Jackson, has been a key player in this work that happens in the district, and so has carefully reviewed this also. So we had added additional definitions and processes. Excuse me. And really the focus is on exclusionary timeout. What we don't want to happen is we don't want students to miss an opportunity for any of their regularly scheduled classes. And so we're very cautious about how we use seclusionary or exclusionary, I'm sorry, timeout. And so that is that policy. And again, really good work here with updating legal references and all of the definitions. Mr. Walker, I don't know, do you have any questions about the policy?
No, I was looking at it. It felt like almost a repeat of the hang on. It felt like a repeat of .1 to me. And as I was looking for this, there's some subtle differences, but I couldn't immediately point them out. It does feel like this has more direction. It feels like, is this the policy that the actual staff looks at to see exactly what they have to do? Because it feels like it's that way, but maybe I'm misinterpreting it. What's the difference? Like, why separate the 1.1 from the 1.1?
Thank you for that question. By law, we are required to have two separate policies. And the as one specifically for the use of exclusionary timeout. So they are very similar. They align with each other very well. And the second policy goes into more detail about exactly how and when to use exclusionary timeout. So that's the big difference between the two. It does give more directives to the staff.
Okay, then I guess I just have just two short questions, and Reverend Adrian joined on too. So at some point he will take over the chair. The one is when I was reading the first policy, I was looking for that little modification where we were dealing with Ms. Trimley Jackson's idea of being able to kind of casually remove students to get them from one place to the other. I'm thinking that's the language that was put in there to fix her issue, right? I saw some language in there that says that we're able to use some type of holding or whatnot to get a student from point A to point B. Was that the language that kind of dealt with that issue of getting the child off the bus type of thing?
Yes. So if a child fell asleep on the bus, or if a child fell asleep in a classroom or in a place that might not be safe, we would be able to move the child.
Right, definitely. Right, so the other piece is, I guess, I'm talking tools for the school. It felt like in one policy, it talked about if a student is restrained 4 or 5 times, or some number of times within a period, then that's the point at which we could kind of reconvene and see if there's some other tools or modification of the plan that need to be put in place. So what I'm asking is that the tool that allows administrators to be able to say, hey, maybe what we're currently doing, which is by this policy, short timeouts, return to class, short timeouts, return to class. If that's not working, is that how we understand this policy, that if it happens so many times in a period, that's the thing that triggers a reassessment of whether or not the current plan is working?
So I know that there are, under the section, conditions pertaining to the use of restraint. Sorry, let me just share my screen. There is the discussion about exceeding 15 minutes. Is this the section that you're speaking of, Mr. Walker?
Hang on, let me look through this and see. No, that seemed to be no, I think.
Oh, is it this section here?
Yes, that's the section that I was speaking of. I just wanted to be clear, and I saw that. The only reason I asked about that is that occasionally I've heard some complaints about, students being timed out for a short period of time and then returned back to the classroom situation. And often, maybe things aren't totally resolved after that short intervention. But I just want to make sure there was some tool in place where if it continually happens, there is a tool that allows people to say, okay, let's take a pause and reassess. And I think this is the point here where they can change the approach and the plan of how the student engages with their education, right? Okay.
Yes.
And it's not so much about adding more physical restraint. It really is just getting about the plan of the student having the short time out and then being returned to class as kind of the solution to a behavior problem.
Yes, absolutely. So there is a protocol that we're following. So if the physical restraint or seclusion is used and it doesn't seem to really be getting to the root of the challenge, then this is a protocol we're going to follow to dive more deeply into that.
Okay. Okay. All right. I understand, again, for the record, the reason I'm asking that question is just occasionally when, there's the complaint that someone is saying that, unruly child is returned to class and by golly, what can we do about it? In the future, I think I'm going to point them to this to say, hey, we do have an approach to deal with students for whom the short-term timeout isn't effective. And so
Yes.
I'm just saying, because this is the plan to do it, to address that issue.
Yes.
That's all for my questions. So I'm.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yes.
Come on.
Gosh, AJ, yeah, are you ready to take over a chair?
Yeah, Tyrone, thank you so much, man. Today I had, Monday morning. I apologize.
Yep.
We need to figure out how to make these meetings probably a little later in the morning to get everything settled. Because once you're behind, you're behind. But good morning, everyone. I have two questions. How many more policies do we have to review?
In this,
Second reading today.
for the second reading, just two more, the pesticide application and the soliciting funds. And again, this is the second reading.
Okay. My second question is, Dr. Silver, you're homesick.
Yes.
Did you was it your intentions to come into work today?
Well, I have a fever, so I didn't want to expose people to any germs. I'm keeping them all to myself today.
Okay, yeah. So, as chair of this meeting, I really want to hear from Millie, and then I'm going to postpone the rest of the meeting, Dr. Silver, because I personally don't feel that if you're homesick, you should not be on a call. That's just me. I don't know how anyone else feels about that, but I appreciate your fight. But if we can proceed without Dr. Silver, or postpone it until maybe Thursday morning or Friday morning for about a half an hour to go through the rest of the agenda until Dr. Silver feels better. I want to honor and respect that, but I also want to honor Millie's time. So if Tyrone, how do you feel about that? Because Dr. Silver doesn't even. She doesn't sound like herself. I didn't even know it was her.
Right. I share that feeling. I will say, Dr. Silver, tongue in cheek, right? I was going to applaud you for channeling your best Kathleen Turner imitation, because you sound really smoky here, really, really deep. So I would say, AD, if maybe we get through the since she's on, if we can get through the ones that have to go for the second reading, I'm totally open to just pushing off the first reading to another meeting or another time, or we can find some other way to deal with the first reading. We don't have to discuss those.
Okay, so we have two more for second reading. Christina, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, correct. And they shouldn't be that
They're much simpler.
yes, simpler. Good way to put it.
Okay. And did we get any feedback on this particular policy from board members, as this is probably should be of interest to every board member?
Correct. No emails came in when I sent it to the whole committee.
Okay. All right. Is it ready to move forward?
Yes, as long as you and Mr. Walker have.
Yeah, I mean, if you put into the floor, Mr. Chairman, I would agree that this is ready to move forward as was the previous 51444.1 and .11 both should be ready to move forward.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next two. Dr. Silver, if you're up to it, move forward. Again, I don't want to put any more pressure. Put any more pressure on you than you need to, but move forward if you feel up to it.
Thank you, Pastor AJ. I appreciate that. I do want to say that Ms. Comides is here this morning, and we have a really important student wellness policy that I would like us to consider. And I think maybe Ms. Comides could lead us through that policy. And I could turn off my mic. And so that's another possibility.
And is that student welfare 3.03, Dr. Silver?
5141.3 student
Yes.
welfare.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. All right. And let me just ask Ms. Comides if that is okay with you.
Sure. Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Silver, and I hope you feel better.
Thank you. Thank you.
Christina,
So
would
we're
you be able to pull it up?
Yeah, but we're gonna finish real quick the
Oh.
two from the second reading, and then we have Ms. Arciniegas on the line, and then we'll get to to that policy.
Got it.
Michelle, thank you.
Okay. So are we going to do the other two second
Correct.
reading items? Okay, great. So we will share this second reading is pesticide applications. And again, our committee has gone line by line through this policy. And this is a standard policy. We did not have this policy in place, although we were abiding by the certainly the state and federal laws around pesticides. But we didn't have this policy in place. So CABE had pointed out that we needed this mandated policy. So we have both the policy and the regulations here. And if there are no questions, I'll go to the next policy.
You can continue because I think I think this one was pretty cut and dry.
Okay. All right. Another policy that we had that we needed is a policy 1324, which is soliciting funds from and by students. And this is another policy that we did not have in place. And so we have moved forward with the policy and the administrative regulations to accompany that policy. So again, have not received any feedback, any additional requests for changes for these. And that brings us to our new policies. Well, I'll pause there.
Mr. Chair, one, I guess, question or comment.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, buddy.
Okay, thank you. So, Dr. Silva, again, not to belabor this, but under the pesticide application, just want to be clear, the focal point for executing this, is that going to be the on-site facilities person? And is that correct? And is that person needing any additional training or certification so that they can actually execute this?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Mr. Walker. It is true that the designated staff at the schools would need to administer the pesticide. If there was pesticide being administered, they would need to follow these protocols. And Chief Davis Cooge leads this work in our organization and has regularly scheduled trainings as well as communication strategies and protocols that are in place to notify the community wherever there might be a pesticide applied.
So then if I may, then the only action I would say, Christina, again, because it's new even though we're following its new policy, is can we have Chief Davis Googe or her designated at some point report back out, training plan that has happened, that everybody's in place now, and that they're all set to execute this
Yes,
just as an action. Other than that, the policy is fine. I just want to make sure that since the board is responsible for training and execution, that we have that one piece. That's it for me.
All right. Well, if this, let's move forward. Because it's just me and you on the call, right? Your hire is not here as well.
Right. So just Mr. Chair, well, I'll make the proposal, I guess, that we move these both forward, the pesticide and the solicitation policy, just move forward to the full board. You just to make sure both of us are okay with that.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yes, sir. No issue with that.
Okay.
And Christina, can you? I'm sure you do this, but just as a small reminder, if you could just send it out to the board, the full board beforehand, just so they have it. And if there's any conversation that needs to be had, but let's have it before before the board meeting if possible.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Are we ready to move on to Ms. Arciniega?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Ms. Arciniega, I apologize for my tardiness, and I'm happy to see you here, and wanted to create some space for you as you one of your groups have put up some policy recommendations, and I just wanted to honor and recognize it, and just give you some space to just talk us through and tell us what's on your mind. So
Thank you, Pastor AJ. And I was a little late myself, so that changing the hour sounds good.
yeah, that Monday morning. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's rough, man. Getting the kids out, trying to it's
I know.
a thing. So, but go ahead. I look, we were both late, so we're all right. We're all right.
So so I also have Deb on the line, my program coordinator, just in case I have questions. You guys have questions, further questions on the recommendations that we moved forward to the policy committee. So just to give you a little history, we were meeting with the Hartford Parent Leadership Coalition. It's under Hartford Parent University, this coalition, which we met with them once a month. And we did that for about 5 years. And then the pandemic happened. So during this, they wanted to start talking about safety. Okay, so they did all of the, they got to choose what they wanted to start addressing. And one of the main things was safety, because without safety, you can't learn. So that was the bottom line for that. And so those recommendations that you see that came out of that, out of those meetings. So, the meetings were like all year long. And then, the recommendations were sent to Michelle Pulick at the time. And then it went to the policy committee for them to consider. So I'm happy to say that some of the things that are on those recommendations have been implemented, which is nice. But that's the history on the recommendation. So the Hartford Parent Leadership Coalition consisted of school governance council members and also PTO leaderships from the schools across Hartford. And that's magnet and community schools. And so with that, then came, all of the, the Weaver issue. And then there's now this other issue that came up with someone coming in the building. And so what we've done as Harvard Parent University is we've gone back to the state. And we've looked at this unsafe school choice law, which basically has not been looked at since 2003. This law was implemented, this legislation was implemented during the No Child Left Behind era. And then Obama, President Obama, he kept it in there when he came on board. So what states are charged to do is they're supposed to set the criteria of what constitutes an unsafe school. And so since 2003, this has not been looked at by the state. And that's how far we've gotten information. So there has not been an effort on saying, okay, here is what constitutes an unsafe school. And when a school is an unsafe school, what then parents have the right to do is to transfer the kids out of that school into another school in their district that's safer. So I'll open it up to questions if you guys have it.
Yeah, this is Tyrone Walker. Good morning, Millie.
Good morning, Tyrone.
Yeah, the question that I would have is in the current open choice, structure that we have now, is there anything preventing a parent from moving a student now? Is there some restraint on parents moving students?
Well, once a student starts school, it's kind of difficult to. I mean, if it's like if it's looked at as like a bullying issue where it's really unsafe for the child, they look at all of the unsafe issues that child is having, and then they determine whether or not to transfer that child.
Okay, I'm only asking because I'm just trying to determine, is like what's different going to happen if a school is designated as unsafe? Is there some additional, activity that happens or some additional burden on the district? Or...
Well, if the state, which I'm going to be part of the state board meeting on the 7th, Wednesday, if the state sets this criteria, then parents would have an option, right? So you would be able to say as a parent, you know what, I still feel safe in the school. I'm gonna keep my kid here. Or if you don't feel safe in the school, you're able to transfer your child through this law.
So through you, Chair, we did, after Millie's public comment, we did give it to staff who got Shipman and Goodwin to give an opinion, which I will turn it over to Attorney Mizrak now, because Dr. Silver, who cannot speak right now, she will have Attorney Mizrak, who I believe part of the thing is that none of the Hartford schools have been on the list of persistently dangerous school. I will share, so Lori, I can share the screen share the email, or do you just want to talk through it?
Whatever you
Okay.
think is best. I'm
So those, go ahead, Attorney.
sure. So I think as Millie was discussing, this law has been in effect for some time, and it sounds like there are efforts to try to make it a little stronger, if I'm understanding. So we just looked into the background and looked for an assessment around whether there are any schools presently that are defined as persistently dangerous under what that current classification is. And so basically, the state uses the suspension evaluation data for the most current 3 years to determine whether it meets that criteria of persistently dangerous. And it has to meet two of the following requirements that you'll see on the screen. And so it's 2 or more gun-free school violations, which includes possession of a firearm or explosive device that resulted in expulsion from school, 1 other weapon incident resulting in expulsion per 200 students with a minimum of 3 such incidents, or 1 violent criminal offense resulting in expulsion per 200 students with a minimum of 3 such incidents. And then there's a process under the current law that if schools meet 2 of the 3 conditions, they're notified. Within 1 month of identification, the superintendent and the principal need to formulate a written plan, which would include specific types of programs, professional development, procedure, equipment that would be implemented to create a positive school climate. And then there's further criteria. So if schools meet 2 of the 3 conditions for 2 consecutive years, then they're put on a warning status. And if schools meet 2 of the 3 conditions for 3 consecutive years, then they'll be identified as persistently dangerous. So there seems to be different levels of criteria that have to be met. And then once that occurs, the district must notify parents and offer them the opportunity to transfer their children to another public school within the district that is not persistently dangerous. And I guess the data that the State Department of Ed had indicated that no school in Connecticut at this point has been identified as persistently dangerous, given that current criteria.
And I just want to add, Dr. Silver, sorry, who cannot speak right now, just a family can request to move their child, and they do for various reasons at any time. We place high value on meeting family and student needs. That being said,
Okay, that's very that's very helpful. That none of our schools are in that position. Is that accurate?
that is correct. None in Connecticut, it looks like.
Not in Connecticut. Okay. All right. Good. Okay. And Millie, you mentioned that we have implemented some of the suggestions that you all have put forward. Is there anything else in your purview as it pertains to safety and policy that we can do, just from your,
Yeah, I think that, if we're going to say that there has not been a school in the state of Connecticut that hasn't been that's been persistently dangerous, okay, since 2003, right? Then I think that we should create some type of, I don't know if you have it already, Pastor AJ, but some type of safety committee where they look at that data that's coming from the state a little bit more in detail. And that's what I requested from the state. We want to be able to look at that data and see what they're looking at, because there may be that they will never be, and which is a good thing under their criteria, right? They will never be a persistently dangerous school. So we want to make sure that at the state level that they're not putting this criteria so broad that that a school will not get the resources that they need to make sure that they're safe. And that's, I really do feel that you guys are on the right track. You guys have accepted some of our recommendations. I don't know as a policy committee, but and implemented in the Safe School Climate Plan. I don't think it's been included in there. But I have been seeing across the district some of the things that we've mentioned in our recommendations be done. So which is a good thing.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much
And
for your
thank you.
time and your advocacy and your organizing. And just wanted to make sure, just as a community organizer by profession, if folks are going to take time to put together things to help move our district forward and protect our kids, and I want to recognize those things. So I just want to say, one, I recognize the work that you've put in and appreciate that. And on the state level, when you go to the meeting this week, if you do get some answers, please be able to send an email and let us know, because I do somewhat agree with the criteria and getting an idea of what they're looking at, considering a safe school. But yeah, let's stay in continual conversation. And again, if there's things that we can do, we are all ears as a policy committee.
And
thank
before you
you.
go,
I appreciate it.
sorry, before you go, Chairman Rieger has joined the meeting and he does have his hand up. So just in case the question pertains to what we're talking.
Chair Johnson, do I have the floor?
Yes, I didn't see your hand, sir. My apologies.
No, not a problem. And I apologize for joining late. And I know I joined towards the tail end. I guess the question I have is, what is persistently, like, I know there was a definition. I guess I'm confused as to when we're talking about kids, it sounds like there needs to be a reoccurring threat, right, to the kids. And I'm just trying to figure out how do we make schools just not dangerous in general? Like, why does it have to be this persistent factor into it?
Millie, you want to answer?
Well, and that's the question that we have for the state is,
Okay.
Let's look at that persistently dangerous with all of the districts, right, in the state of Connecticut, and let's determine a criteria, because since 2003, they have not looked at that. And I got that from the state themselves, from their lawyer team, from their team of lawyers.
So Millie, and again, I guess to echo AJ's statements before, right? I certainly appreciate the advocacy and the effort that you're putting towards this. What I would say, I know there's a lot of work to be done, but I'm speaking on behalf of kind of myself and as someone that grew up in the urban area in New York. And when I look at Hartford and smaller urban districts, right, unlike large districts like a Chicago or a New York or a LA, the needs and poverty are more concentrated in very finite areas. And like, our kids are under trauma like 24/7. And I just don't understand how the powers that be are having a hard time understanding that. So again, I appreciate your advocacy, and if there's anything that we could do to help either provide data or provide perspective, I'm sure the board is certainly willing to lend a hand. And I know the policy committee would do whatever they can to help in those discussions.
Well, thank you very much. And one of the things that I will be asking on Wednesday of the state board is to meet with all of the districts to relook at the persistently dangerous school criteria, so that way everybody can have a say in it.
And Millie, I guess from that point, what would be like your end goal? What would be your objective in that discussion or in those conversations?
Well, my end goal would be that they, if you're in a school and let's say 3 guns were found, and you put things in place so that wouldn't happen again. And it can't be foolproof, but at the end of the day is for the parents to really understand it, so that they can be a part of this process as well, right? So that they can also talk to their children, they can also be checking, so if there's many parents that do not even know that this exists. And I want them to know that it exists so that they can do their part as well, and have a say.
Yeah, I guess, I appreciate that. From, again, I won't belabor the point, but I question why is it 3 and not 1, right?
Right.
Like for me, that's, anyway, okay. I
Thank you.
appreciate the time.
Any other questions before we move on? Board Member Walker? Okay, Millie, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you,
And,
everyone.
Yep, we'll look forward to being in partnership with you on this matter. All right, Christina.
Yes. So, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, just what's the next agenda item? Because we
Yep, so as we
gotta wrap
discussed,
this up.
we are just going to go over 3.03, which is student welfare, and we have Ms. Deb Kamaides on the line to walk us through the policy as Dr. Silver is under the weather. And I will screen share. Hold on.
I'm muted. Good morning. Thank you, Christina.
You're welcome.
Good morning.
Okay.
So we were tasked with creating just a general student welfare policy, which we did not have in place beforehand. So I'll just read through it, and then Dr. Silver, I know you're under the weather, but if there's anything that you wanted to add. So student welfare and safety are the highest priority in all aspects of district and school-based programming. All student activities shall be developed with careful attention given to student safety and consistent with the appropriate abilities, limitations, and risk factors of students in the relevant age group or cohort. Student engagement in classroom and other school activities is promoted by the district at all times. School staff observing any student who is asleep, lethargic, or otherwise non-responsive during any class or other school activity shall immediately attempt to engage or otherwise rouse the student and encourage them to engage in programming. Exceptions include students who have a program nap or rest period during the school day, or students permitted to sleep or rest under the supervision of or at the direction of nursing staff. When school staff is unsuccessful in waking a student who is sleeping or rousing a student who is non-responsive, staff shall immediately contact the school nurse to conduct a medical assessment. To address student welfare and safety issues consistent with state law and board policy, annual in-service training will be provided to all staff in such areas as signs and symptoms of drug abuse and prevention, recognizing and reporting child abuse and neglect, suicide prevention, allergic reaction, sexual assault and dating violence, eating disorders, and appropriate referral to medical personnel. And then we have links at the bottom of the policy to some of our other policies that were just mentioned in the last paragraph. Dr. Silver, is there anything that you want to add about this policy, or Attorney Misarek?
I'm set. I think you covered it.
Thank you.
I'm good too. I think that this is a really wonderful policy that will be a big help to our schools. Thank you so much, Ms. Kamaides.
Thank you.
Outstanding. I don't necessarily have any questions because I think student engagement in classrooms is something that should already be supported. And so again, Ms. Deb, in the spirit, like is this a policy that we already had, or is this a new policy that we're suggesting?
Yeah, thank you for that. I believe that we did not have a general policy on student welfare. Is that correct? Other team members, I believe that we did not have anything like this before.
That's true. We did not have anything like this before. And we also really, until this policy became necessary, we just could not have predicted what happened last year.
Mhm. Understood. Okay, in that perspective, this is very clear. Okay, Mr. Walker, Board Chair Rigger, any feedback on this before we move forward?
I mean, as everyone seems to be saying, my comment is that that staff in the district are concerned with student welfare would seem self-evident. So it would seem like we'd be interested in doing that. The question that I have as I look at the policy is, would the next logical step be then to advocate for wraparound services? Because, or create partnerships that allow that to happen. Because it seems to indicate that we're going to try to, I mean, you get my question that if you're looking at a young person for a range of issues, it would seem like you wouldn't stop at the identification, that somehow you'd be participating in trying to help that family and that student find support services. And well, that's what it would seem like. So would this kind of open us up to then be doing wraparound services for young people?
Deb?
So yeah, that's a great question. I mean, my immediate thought is that this policy, addresses the immediate health and safety of the students. But I would say that definitely if a student, it would be really on a case-by-case basis that the nurse would assess the student, and if services, it were necessary, absolutely would contact the parent, would get the social worker involved and anybody else in the school who could make the appropriate referrals and, assist the family with whatever supports they need.
Okay. All right. Any other comments and feedback on this particular policy? Lori, any thoughts or anything you potentially we may run into? I mean, it seems pretty cut and dry, but I just want to be sure before we move it out this committee that we've thought of every wrinkle and considered every piece before we bring it to a board and we're talking about it for an hour.
Time out. This is first reading. Just for the record.
Oh, right.
First reading.
First reading. Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
No, I think it seems like you're in good shape, at least for first reading, to move it forward. And, I think you've touched upon what we need to, but if other things come up, at least there's that little window that we can address those other issues.
Fair. All right. With that being said, we'll wait to hear comment from other board members, and then we'll come back for second reading. Outstanding. Ms. Santiago, is there anything else that we need to look at?
No, not we're gonna move or possibly do another policy committee, or just move it for next month is your ask for the remainder of the policies.
I would say, well, my first question would be the severity and the timeliness. Is there anything that needs to happen before next month?
Dr. Silver, sorry, I know you're under the weather, but we have student attire and the alternative education programs. Do any of those?
We can delay that.
Okay.
What was really important was putting the student welfare policy for first read, moving that forward, and putting closure on the policies that we have for second reading. Thank you.
Okay. Well, yeah.
The only thing I'll add is, and we don't need Dr. Silver for this, is we have kind of been kicking the public comments down the road. We could do a quick discussion since we have you three on the call, if you wanted to, or we could also
Kick it down the road a little more.
kick it
right?
down the road one more time.
I want to, so this is not kicking it down the road. I just want to give it time, and I want to give it time that I don't think we have.
Okay.
At this moment to do it real justice. If I would suggest that our next meeting, let's just put that first on the agenda. Just so we can give it the maximum amount of time that we can. Because we did hear some public comment, and we did learn some things at the CABE conference. Well, not learn some things, but we kind of played out a few scenarios that I thought was interesting in the mock board meeting. Which, you know, may be helpful for this conversation. So I would say let's put it first on our agenda for next month, and just solidify it there.
Mr. Chair, if I
Yes, Mr.
And
Walker.
just one comment, if we added, is it possible, Christine, to have those comments somehow added so that we can review them prior to the discussion? I didn't see them to review today.
Sorry. Yes, so this is the policy on public comment, not the actual. public
Oh,
comment.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And that
okay.
is attached in the, yeah,
Peace, okay. I misunderstood. Okay, thank you.
no problem.
Okay,
Yeah, let's just give it more time next meeting, and then
I would agree.
we
I'd
could put
agree.
it to rest. We could put it to rest next meeting.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
that's all for the agenda.
All right, Mr. Rigger, how do you feel about that? Are you comfortable with that plan, Mr. Chair?
So not knowing exactly what we're talking about, I will have to default to you and Tyrone.
Okay, yeah, all right, bet.
Because again, I didn't go to the Cape conference, so I'm not sure. I just don't have enough context to make a decision.
I got you. Well, yeah, then we're gonna go ahead and just keep it for next month, and we'll review all of the information that we have regarding public comment. Okay. Listen, Dr. Silver, you know, I am one that says if you're sick, stay home and don't come to work. So I applaud you for doing what you did this morning. You know, and if I would have known that you were as sick as you were, I certainly would have postponed this meeting. So, you know, you can take care of yourself and not be asked to do more than what you should with a fever and being sick. But I appreciate your effort. Deb, thank you. Lori, thank you. Mr. Rigger, thank you. Tyrone, thank you. Christina, thank you.